Welcome to yet another episode of Full Force. This one's a little special. We're going to be going over the Legacy Cube. This is a very different cube than past cubes. I'm going to go over it a little bit in the article that's actually up on Newmont Gaming. But today we've got the most voted for deck was Mono Black. So we're just going to be picking up black cards. It doesn't leave us a whole lot of choices here. There's Battle Sphere, Scroll Rack, Lava Claw Reaches, I guess, if I really wanted to splash something. But, I mean, it's supposed to be mono black, and Gatekeeper, I guess, is okay. This pack's pretty weak overall. Good Mere Battlesphere is pretty strong. Besides that, I don't really like too much of anything here. Yosei's okay. Faith's Fetters is actually quite good. Same with Song. Not terrible, but not a great pack either. Ooh, Grolf's Messenger. So cards that we're really looking for are... There's going to be a lot of things that work with, say, Recurring Nightmare is one of the biggest cards that you can get, I think, in Mono Black, because a lot of your creatures have come into play abilities and also have ways to exploit the Recurring Nightmare. So things like Ophiomancer makes you a bunch of little creatures, so you can constantly sacrifice them over and over and over, and use Recurring Nightmare to get back bigger creatures. Grolf's Messenger is similar because of the Undying, so you play it, sacrifice it, get something better back, and you get the Grolf's Messenger back with more power. I think that we take Duress here, actually, even though I do like Grolf's Messenger, just because Duress is generally very playable in Cube. There's a lot of non-creature spells that are pretty good, and it's less likely to wheel than Grolf's Messenger is. Grolf's Messenger is almost always wheels. That should certainly come back, so I think I take this here. Wasteland, I don't think is anywhere in the discussion, really. I like the card in kind of theory, but it never seems to do what you need. You have to go up against a lot of... you have to go up against the deck that's playing a lot of colors for it to be really worthwhile. Like, a lot of non-basics. And I don't think that it's too common that that happens. If they have Colonnade or something, you can put it in, but it's not that big of a deal. Plus, Mono Black has really harsh mana requirements, despite being only one color. Just because there's so many triple and quad color even, like, black cards. Things like Phyrexian Obliterator are really good, and you don't want to mess around with your mana too much so you can't play Obliterator on, like, turn 4. Man, these packs have not been breaking our way so far. It looks like it's going to be Shieldred. I don't want Deathrite Shaman, because I'm not going to be able to use the green ability. I mean, it's not terrible, but I need to have some... I feel like I'd need to have some number of fetch lands to actually use it, and then also on top of that, then I'd need to use the ramp. The life gain I'm not going to be able to use. Like, it's only the one ability, so it's like a 1-2 that I can exile instants or sorceries to make opponents lose life. That seems okay, but not amazing. Shieldred, however, is pretty strong, at least on the top end. Victimize is interesting, so it's similar to like a Recurring Nightmare style effect. If we can victimize our Grolf's Messenger, for example, if we get it back, then we can get some other good cards back out of our graveyard. Maybe Shieldred? Possible that we go Minor Reanimator theme. I think that normally the power of the Mono Black deck is in being a very good mid-range deck and like kind of one that beats a lot of the other creature-focused decks. I'll kind of talk about that a little bit in the article as well, but I feel like the black deck has just a lot of good 2-for-1 kind of removal, so a lot of their creatures kill things, like the Gatekeeper. Sidisi is certainly reasonable. I like the idea of Victimize, though. Let's mess around with that. We can do something interesting with Victimize, I'm sure. There's Oblivion Stone, Una's Prowler. That does give us a way to use the Victimize. So I could play Una's Prowler, discard Shieldred, Victimize something, and then get a very cheap Shieldred. That's certainly a possibility. Vraska is certainly sideboardable. Being able to destroy non-land permanents, Mono Black has a huge gap there. There's no real way to destroy non-land permanents unless you're splashing, so Vraska can do that. Oblivion Stone does a similar thing. You can destroy non-land permanents with this, like non-creatures. But the problem is that this is really slow. I mean, 8 mana to use it immediately. Kind of tough. And then, of course, it's not targeted, so you're blowing up everything. You can't just spot kill one specific thing. I think I just take the Prowler here, actually. We have a very interesting, like, recursion sub-theme going on, and I don't mind testing the waters on that. I don't love the recursion type decks in Cube most of the time. You need a lot of consistency for the deck to be really good if you're going all in on it. Like, if you've got a bunch of Una's Prowlers and like you have reanimation spells all over the place, then and really really high top end cards like you're playing Shieldred and Gristlebrand and cards that you won't get into play besides reanimating. I don't like those style of decks because you can end up in a hand with like Gristlebrand and a Victimize and then hope to draw an Ullr's Prowler, but you might not get it. And then it's just sitting there and both those cards are dead in your hand. But you can't really throw a hand like that back either, because if you do draw your way to discard, then it's really, really good. So you're stuck in this weird limbo where do you keep those hands? Do you toss them back? The things that you need to make that deck more consistent are things that aren't in this cube. Things like Demonic Tutor, card draw, all of those kinds of things will give you big advantages in that deck and actually make it viable. But you can't really do that in this cube because you don't have like the Vampiric Tutor, the Mnemonic Tutor. You don't have Mystical Tutors and, you know, all the really, really good card draws that you get in, like, say, a vintage cube. We've got Abrupt Decay here. There's no lands even that I want, so I guess it's Abrupt Decay. It's possible that I want the removal. Feels like somebody else might be in black. Could take Sorin, Solemn Visitor, have some white. I could take the Hissing Quagmire just to be able to splash the Abrupt Decay. It might just be most reasonable to just take a land. I don't... Like, all of these are pretty powerful in their own way. Olivia Voldaren actually is really good. It absolutely destroys other creature decks. But black is already pretty good against that anyways, and like I said, I'd rather have a way to splash other colors first than just pick up other colors. Take Scroll Rack, I suppose. I could hate something from someone. I don't think I care about most of these cards, though. Scroll Rack might be reasonable if we go the Reanimator route, because that's a way to gain that consistency that we talked about, where we can just pitch a bunch of cards to try and draw into the third piece that we need to actually get the combos going. Got Karmic Guide here. That card's good against us because of the protection from black. You'll notice that I'm hate drafting a few cards, and some people might not be doing that anymore because of the fact that there's the draft leagues, and because of the draft leagues you don't need to hate draft at all, not even a little bit. I don't do that for Full Force episodes, for one, because I think it's just a slightly different environment. I really do like the drafts, but I like the idea of single elimination, at least for Full Force videos. And then the other reason here, I don't do any of the cubes in the draft leagues, just because it feels weird. I love the draft leagues. I'm a huge proponent of them. But for cube, it just feels wrong, because there's only one card in the cube. Like, there's one of each card. So it's a singleton format. And because of that, you shouldn't come across somebody playing something that you're playing, and it just feels really wrong when you do. Like, that's... Normally you can have that happen in a regular draft, right? You can have two blue-red spells players. That'll happen sometimes. Both of your decks might be slightly worse because of it, but it certainly does happen. And there's depth to those colors to even make that happen a lot of the time. And they could be good decks. But in this, it just feels so wrong to be like, oh yeah, I got Recurring Nightmare, I've got like this sweet blacklist, this is going to be cool. And then you come across like another deck running Recurring Nightmare and it feels weird. I think that just feels really wrong. So for me, just to keep a kind of pure Legacy cube feel, I like playing the single eliminations. It's too bad because I mean, the draft leagues are very fun, but in this particular instance, I think that they're not necessary or useful. So we're really hoping to get like Phyrexian Obliterator. The Grolf's Messenger didn't wheel, which is a terrible sign, because like that's just one of the cards that mono black is like the only deck that could possibly want it. And if we're not getting it back, we're in a bit of trouble. We have Dark Petition as a tutor, or Makeshift Mannequin as more recursion. I could take the Mannequin and continue down this really weird mono black Reanimator strategy that we have. This is not where you want to be. If we're going mono black, then you want to be kind of mid-range aggro value kind of thing. You're trying to do a lot of 2-for-1s off of Necrotals and Shriekmaws, and if possible, get Recurring Nightmare. Do all of that kind of shenanigans. Lots of 2-for-1s and fairly aggressive creatures. You don't want to be playing Reanimator, because if you're going to play Reanimator, you want to be blue-black. Things like Careful Study are great in Reanimator. That's a card that I would actually want here if I was doing Reanimator. So this isn't... Like, if we're stuck doing mono-black, which is what we're forcing, then we don't want to be reanimating. I think that it's still the Mannequin despite that, just because it's a powerful card. And I do have some reanimation cards, but I'm not liking it. It's not where we're hoping to be. Well, we have Dragonlord Silumgar. That card's just kind of great. There's also Batterskull. Precursor Golem seems fine. This pack is really powerful. There's a lot of good cards in very different archetypes. Green Ramp loves Gaia's Cradle. Aggro decks love Rashadan Port. Flametongue Kavu's good in red. Thalia is really good in a mono-white aggro deck. Splinter Twin's obviously great combo. Like, there's good blue cards in Jace and Frost Titan, Dragonlord Silumgar. Batterskull's just good in a million decks. This is a really strong pack. I'm pretty sure that we just take the Batterskull here. It's the most likely to make our deck, and it keeps it the most mono-black. Dragonlord Silumgar wouldn't be bad, but Batterskull's just a little bit better. We're going to force through this, even though somebody else is taking our black cards. We're pushing it real hard. We'll take this Ophiomancer. Ophiomancer is a really good card, actually. This is one of those cards, like I said, where the black deck just really shines against other creature decks. You can't attack through Ophiomancer. This card's just miserable to attack into. Making an infinite army of 1/1 Death Touchers is super frustrating for a lot of decks. So they have to have a removal specifically for it. Ooh, Ob Nixilis. I'll take an Obby. That seems perfectly fine. I would love to get Recurring Nightmare, as I've mentioned many times before. It's just the #1 card that I want. I really need to find some 2-for-1 kind of plays as well, because I don't have any of the mid-range kind of value creatures yet. I don't have a Bone Shredder, Necrotol, or Shriekmaw, which are cards that I really want to find. I need a little bit of action on this side, and not so much on this side anymore, because we've got a lot of top end. Erebos is a card that I don't like even in mono black, because it just doesn't do anything. So often it's just a, 4 mana and then pay 2 life, draw a card enchantment. That's not good. Even if you activate it, I very rarely find that I would actually do the pay 2 life, pay 2 mana, and draw a card effect. So kind of the best thing you're hoping for is like a 5/7 for 4 that's indestructible. And that's strong, but it's not that easy to turn on, so I don't really enjoy it. There's some great blue cards here. Kira is really good against any decks that are trying to kill off a bunch of creatures. Vendilion Click's obviously insane, but, we're stuck with where we're at. We're taking Erebos. Mono black it is. Rager's a pretty good come into play effect, so that's nice. It's a way for us to use some value off of, like, a Victimize. We can trade off some creatures early and then Victimize something, rebuy Rager and, I don't know, like Sidisi or something and get a little bit of value. Sidisi's a nice one to have for that as well. Ooh, Phyrexian Arena. This is one of my favorite cards. I just love playing with this card in Cube. People tend to pass it really late, and it's because of the mana cost, I would think. But the effect is exceptionally powerful. It's really, really strong. If you can keep a Phyrexian Arena in play for like 3 or 4 turns, you're going to pull ahead in that game. It's very hard for your opponent to get out from under that much card advantage. Nissa is pretty cool. There's just a lot of Planeswalkers in this cube. This cube feels like it's all about mid-range decks. Like I said, I'll talk about that a little bit in the article as well. But it's really shifted to like Planeswalkers and mid-range. Distended Mindbender is decent enough, I suppose. It's a way for us to actually get things into our graveyard to Victimize back. And then we can makeshift mannequin things out, Victimize them out. So that seems acceptable, at the very least. Dark Petition, Avacyn Wield. I'm not sure how good this is in the cube. I've never tried it yet. It seems decent enough in a mono-white kind of aggro list. Liliana. Liliana just seems terrible. I don't think I want Rashadan Port either, though. I've never liked Liliana in any of the mono-black builds that I've had. Not the Heretical Healer, anyways. I guess I could use it. Maybe there's some way that I find. Take a Dragon Skull Summit here. Give us more chances to try and splash something. Maybe splash like Crater's Claws. It's certainly reasonable. Falconwrath Aristocrat might be something that we can splash. I'm not going to be able to splash Nicol Bolas. That seems like it would be a tough thing to do in a mono-black deck. Be hard to justify the deck as still being mono-black if I have Nicol Bolas in it. Alright, so we'll take out Oblivion Stone, Erebos. I still like the Loxodon Warhammer. I think this cube is fairly focused on creature combat. I said a lot of mid-range kind of decks going around. There's certainly some control lists, but there's not nearly as many combo kind of unfair decks running around anymore, so creature combat is more important than it's been in previous cubes. And let's get an Obliterator. I need some 2-drops as well. Like, I need 2s, 3s, and 4s. Especially 2s and 3s, I would say. Like, we just want to be a little bit more aggressive right now. Well, ask and ye shall receive. Take an Obliterator. That is a Windmill Slam pick for us. There's nothing even that's vaguely close to it. Dark Ritual is fine, I guess. I've never been a fan of it. A lot of people like playing Dark Ritual because you do get those games where you just like turn one Dark Ritual into, you know, I can't even think of something really good right now, but like into Hypnotic Spectre, just the classic, something like that, and it seems really powerful then. But if you top deck it later in the game, it's totally dead. That's a really big downside to the card. So it's very powerful, but it's very swingy as to how powerful it is. Whereas Obliterator is always really good. Absolutely destroys mono red because all of the mono red removal is damage based, and you can't really kill Phyrexian Obliterator with damage and expect to come out ahead. This is a sick pack for us too. This is a sick pack for everybody. Craterhoof Behemoth is one of, if not the best green finisher. Mirran Crusader destroys our deck and is just very good. Liliana of the Veil is obviously insane. Skinrender is one of those cards that I wanted. That's kind of the value come into play creatures. Same with Solemn. Same with Metamorph. Metamorph does a lot of things. I think we'd have to take the Liliana, but I would love to have grabbed any one of these as well. My next pick down from Liliana would be Metamorph, and it's really close. It might be wrong that I'm taking the Lily over the Metamorph, and then it goes Solemn into Skinrender afterwards. But that's a very solid pack. Attrition. Attrition is good. Attrition's good with the Aphiomancer especially, where we can put in a snake every turn and then just pick creatures off. So that's certainly not bad. I could take a Languish, but Languish is not that great. It's good against other creature decks, especially aggro decks, but against a green Stompy list or something, Languish is not really where you want to be. I don't think I want Guiltleaf Winnower. It's just another 5. Yeah, it comes into play and destroys something, but it's got a lot of restrictions on what it can kill. There are some big creatures that it doesn't get rid of. So I think this is Attrition. Normally I'd just let Attrition wheel, because normally the only deck that wants it is Mono Black, but we didn't get back the Grolf's Messenger. That to me says that we're in for some tough picks here, where there's going to be other decks that are taking the cards that we really want. Ever After, I haven't played with. It seems interesting. That being said, we have basically no removal so far as a black deck, like 0 creature removal, and so I think that we need Slaughter Pact. I mean, Attrition's okay, but what else do we even have for removal? Just nothing? Like Obnixilis? Ugh. Not at all what we want, so we'll take a Slaughter Pact. Slaughter Pact seems quite reasonable at that point. Ultimate Price is good. Ultimate Price is another strong removal spell, so would not mind taking a few of them. Aberrant Overlord. It is good in mono black. Well, better in mono black. But mono black in my mind generally doesn't want 7 drops, so it's not super interesting. Vampire Hexmage kills Planeswalkers. Ooh, sorry. So Vampire Hexmage does kill Planeswalkers, and we do need 2 drops. I guess that it's the Hexmage. I don't think that I care that much about Overlord. If it was Gary, if it was Grey Merchant of Asphodel, then that's very different, because Gary's kind of insane. It deals a ton of damage. But Hexmage, I just think, is better. Underworld Connections, so we can have a second copy of Phyrexian Arena. It's a little bit worse, a little bit better in some ways, because you don't necessarily have to pay the life. But generally, I think it's worse. I mean, you have to pay 1 mana for it as well, which just is a lot tougher. Asylum Visitor. Another low-end creature. Something that can hold a Loxodon Warhammer. I think that that's okay. I'd rather have the creature right now. We have very few. So I like Underworld Connections, but Asylum Visitor just seems better. Blood Artist. I don't think I'm going to use that. It seems very unlikely. I guess that it's kind of okay with like Attrition and a Theomancer. That kind of combo, but it's not great. There's nothing else here that I really care about. Not even to hate. Thalia is pretty annoying, I suppose, but not overly worried about it. Take the Dark Ritual on the wheel. I might play it. It's certainly a possibility. Skinrender is decent. Didn't wheel the Metamorph or the Solemn, but that's pretty much expected. Mirran Crusader is very scary, but if it's wheeling, that probably means that nobody's in the mono white deck and will want it, so hopefully we don't get absolutely destroyed by a Mirran Crusader, because it will wreck us. Guiltleaf Winnower, Whip of Erebos. I think that we forced the person off of black because we're getting all the black cards wheeling now. So whoever took our Geralf's Messenger probably ran away from black after we forced it this hard. We'll take the Guiltleaf. The Whip of Erebos is interesting against other creature decks where you really need a lot of lifelink, but it feels like overkill. Black's weakness is not other creature decks. That's not the problem that black decks have. So I've never thought that that was a big issue to try and pick up like a bunch of cards that make it better against other creature decks. You already have lots of ways to deal with them. Black is the color of a bunch of removal spells and come into play abilities on creatures that give you a ton of advantage against other creature decks. Like, this is one of the worst decks for that I've seen in mono black, because it doesn't have like the Shriekmaw, Necrotol, all those kinds of things. And even so, we still have like Guiltleaf Winnower, we still have Skinrender, we still have like Obliterator that other creature decks just can't attack around. We still have Attrition and Theomancer. We still have Gatekeeper. And we still have a couple of removal spells like the Slaughter Pact and the Ultimate Price. So it's, yeah, I mean, this is a bad example of how good Mono Black is against creature decks. Should give you some idea as to where it does against like a, you know, mid-range white kind of, or mid-range / aggro white deck or something. Unless they have the Karmic Guide or unless they have the Mirran Crusader, you're generally going to have a lot of 2-for-1s on your side and kind of waltz all over them. They have to undercurve you by a lot to make it worthwhile for them actually win the match. So we're cutting at least one more card here, and we're going to try and play anything else. Like, do I want to try and play the Aberrant Overlord? Overlord is really cool if we can victimize it. No question. Ever After, also quite kind of interesting. Problem is actually getting it into the graveyard. That seems tough. Because we have the Prowler, but that's not really great, and it's not going to happen all that often. I might even just cut the Prowler. Try and play the Shieldred on turn 7. It seems like it's generally going to happen that way anyways. The Prowler is the only way that we have to discard. So I think that's acceptable. I'd like to even cut the Shieldred for something earlier, but all of our other early plays just kind of suck. I don't want to play Bone Splitter because we don't have enough creatures and our deck's not aggressive enough. Erebos I just don't like in general. Although maybe it's okay here. Attrition, Lily, Arena, Obliterator, Skinrender. It's possible that I have it on a fair amount of the time. I just have never been impressed with the card. I don't want Liliana either, because I have never really been impressed with Liliana. I guess we just take out the Prowler. And then we'll just add a bunch of lands and be good to go. This will be a tough deck to win with. It's not the best example of a mono black deck. I'd love to have had all of those come into play 2-for-1 type abilities. That's what we're really missing here. We've got a couple, but they're not the good ones. Like Rager, Guiltleaf Winnower, Skinrender. These are all the tier 2 like versions of them. We want to have the Necrotol. We want to have the Shriek Maw. Those are the kinds of cards that we want. We never got those. Not wheeling that Grolf's Messenger is a pretty good sign as to why we had some trouble. But no, this is what we've got. We're low on creatures, so that's an issue. But there's nothing I can do about it now. Let's jam in, and hopefully we'll win a couple rounds. Might just have to discard Ever After at this point off the Liliana, because I want to keep plussing it. I could minus it to get Rager. Oh, wow. Okay, never mind. We will discard our Skinrender, and then we can Victimize and be very happy.